A warm welcome to Black Island Bakery's organic classic sourdough tutorial. I'm Bruce, let's get baking. Today we have set out what we need for the first step of our sourdough production, and that is to take our starter, in this case it's still ice cold out of the fridge. We're going to take that starter and we are going to refresh it. And this stage is known as creating a production leaven. So this is the leaven out of the fridge or the starter. We're now going to do the production leaven or the production dough. And that is essentially a step between the final mixing of the dough and what is really a somewhat dormant cold starter. And that helps to refresh that starter, make it active, and as you will see, what we produce here will become very active over the next few hours, and that will be the foundation for a successful sourdough loaf. So without any further ado, I'm going to show you how to create the production leaven. So we start by taking a bowl, our leaven, in this case out of the fridge, and I'm going to weigh out what my recipe tells me, which in this case I'm making 5 loaves of bread, 600 grams each. I need 200 grams of leaven. Okay, so I've pretty much used up most of my starter, but what is left in here is enough to regenerate that starter and to keep it going. So what I will do once I finish mixing this is put some more flour and water in here, mix that up, and let it regenerate itself. So that's where we're at. We have 200 grams of starter now in our bowl. And the next step is to put in water. So I'm now going to add my water. In this case it happens to be 200 grams. There we go. That is 200 grams of water. Take a whisk, and I'm simply mixing the sourdough in with the water, distributing it nicely, getting it aerated or oxygenated. And that is the first step of the process. All we're going to do now is add our flour to that, mix it, and then we're going to leave it to let the magic of the sourdough work. So what remains now is to add our flour, which I'm going to do straight into the water. And for those of you who are interested in how much water content there is in all of this, my starter is 100% hydration, so it has equal weights, not volumes, equal weights of flour and water. And this production leaven or production dough is also 100%. So I keep it nice and simple, easy to work out, and it makes it easy to scale as well. So in this case I'm making 5 loaves, so it's simply 5 times my recipe for 1 loaf. And because it's 100% hydration at this stage, it's a very straightforward process. Clean off my finger, waste not, want not. And then I just clean off the sides of the bowl. Make that look good. And there we are. We have sourdough, production leaven, or production dough, first stage of getting ourselves to a delicious sourdough loaf of bread. This production dough will take about 3 or 4 hours at room temperature to expand and become very active. So what I'm going to do now is cover it with this blanket and some plastic. And we'll come back in about 3 or 4 hours and see what that looks like. Welcome back. It's been about 3.5 hours since we mixed our production dough or our production leaven. So let's take a look at how that has come along. This has risen somewhat. We don't expect it to rise in the same way that a dough does. If you recall, I mentioned that this is at 100% hydration, so it's quite wet. But we do expect to see some bubbles, and we expect to see some aeration. And if this is really well developed, when we put our water in, we should actually expect this production leaven to float a little, to have that kind of aeration to it. So I'm now going to mix the actual final dough, and that means adding our salt and our water and our flour. We'll put that in, mix it up, and then I will take you through the process of fermentation and getting that dough to the point where we can then divide it into loaves and prepare it for baking. Yes, so let's put our water in. Pour in. Measuring out 960 grams. And if you take a close look, you can see that this really is floating. So it's a very nicely developed dough. So this is what we call a production leaven. And if you take a close look at this production leaven is floating on the water. That means it's highly aerated. It tells us that our starter culture was very healthy and vigorous when we mixed it up earlier this morning. So we have the basis of a very viable sourdough starter here, the production leaven for the baking of our bread. So we would expect to have a really excellent set of loaves at the end of this process. So one thing about sourdough, there's so many variables, even the weather can affect the way in which a starter culture works. You never quite know what you're going to get. But so far the signs are all good. So all I'm doing here is using my whisk to stir up the production levain in the water, build it up nicely, and we will now add our flour and then our salt. This particular recipe takes 1,400 grams of flour at this stage of the process. Okay, and that's it. Alright, so that's our flour weighed out. And I'm going to now put in my salt, sprinkle over the top. I just put it all together, and it's now just a matter of bringing that together. So just try and incorporate the dry flour into the water. And once I have that done, we let it rest. And that is the first period of rest, known as autolyse, or alternatively, we are allowing the process of autolysis to do its work on the dough. Love to get together and join into these long strands in the presence of water. So as soon as we add water to this, these two proteins begin to find each other and connect and create the network of gluten that ultimately traps the air bubbles from our leavening agent, our sourdough in this case. There we are. Just tidying up the bowl a bit. Yeah. We'll now leave that for 20 minutes, covered, and we will come back to it 20 minutes, half an hour, and we will begin the process of developing this gluten further, and I'll explain to you then what it is that I'm doing.